as we begin the conversation, is who is Theron Shaw?
Well, I'm a musician primarily. I do visual arts also. I compose, arrange, produce music. I was also involved in teaching quite a lot. I taught at the secondary school level at both UTT and UE for a bit as an adjunct teacher in guitar. I've been playing music for over 40 years. Since in the late 80s, I would say, I've started playing professionally.
Part of it that I am curious about
Mhm.
is you were a teacher.
Uh-huh.
Tell me about that.
This is my story. Uh, I was given a lot from people who didn't have to give to me. Some of it by chance, some of it professionally. And I strongly believe that's how things will go from one generation to the next by passing it on. So I'm big on sharing and giving back to what was given to me. I was involved in teaching. I still do some teaching directly and indirectly. Teaching to me is how we progress as a society. I believe we teach directly and indirectly by how you behave, how you perform, what you don't do. You're teaching those things all the time. It's important because sometimes I don't see that happening. For example, I was at an event yesterday that I was part of, and somebody says to me, "Who is the drummer?" I was like, "No, he's 14." I was like, "Okay. Have you seen his drawings?" "No, I haven't." "You need to talk to his mom." I said, "Okay." And I spoke to his mom. She didn't know me. She pulled out her phone and showed me some drawings. I looked at her and I was like, "Your son is not just normal." She was like, "He's quite exceptional." We had a conversation and I said I would try to help her shape because that conversation didn't have to happen. She could have gone her way. I could have gone my way. What is to become of this 14-year-old? And I've seen this so many times. I'm talking about teaching that there are children who have exceptional talent in this country. And because of lack of teaching, lack of direction, family awareness of what are the possibilities, they just fade into oblivion. Or sometimes they get into trouble. Part of that teaching is to nurture, harness, and find out. And it takes work. It's not like a sit back and rock back and it's going to happen. It does take work and it does take quite a bit of sacrifice too. Sometimes not everybody has that tenacity to say, yeah, I'll sacrifice some time for that. And that's just a reality in the space we live.
And what I've heard from you is that you were given those opportunities as a child or as a younger person.
Mhm.
Is there any of those opportunities you'd like to share with us?
My mentors were one is still alive, Michael Toby Tobas. He's a significant player in the music landscape. And the other person was Clive Zander, who's deceased about 2 years ago. I remember one time distinctly, I was playing with Clive, and somebody who he knew started to berate me. "Oh, who's this guy? We can't play. What you have him here for?" And really, he really was getting into me, right? And I remember I was kind of feeling like, oh my God. And Clive, can I just stand up and you're scratching his beard? He was, yeah, but he needs to get a chance to play. You got to give him a chance. And in that instance, Clive stood up for me. Now I could look back and say, yeah, I probably wasn't ready, but Clive stood in my shoes and said, hold on, I'm hearing what you're saying. But how is he supposed to get a chance to play if he's not given a chance to play? And I try in my own way to replicate that by giving people opportunities. We all need a break sometimes, especially the 16, 17-year-olds. So that one thing sticks in my mind from Clive. I always think about it. Whenever I used to see him, I would tell him about it, and he shrug it off. He probably didn't remember, but it's something that comes naturally. It did affect me. It still affects me in the way I try to deal with people.
How did you begin your involvement in music?
I began in primary school. I had a primary school teacher. I used to play recorder, Miss James. I went to Eastern Boys Government School, George Street, next to All Star Spaniard. In those days, I could walk anywhere, any point in time. It was like, okay, you go into school, that's it, period. You go into school, you get challenged in school, you play a little cricket in the yard. The yard seemed like a big football field, but that yard probably was just about 50 feet wide. There was not any sense of any pressure. Anyway, so I went to Eastern Boys and Miss James, I guess, saw something in me and we played recorder at music festival. And it just transcended when I went to secondary school, St. James Sec. I started playing around with the guitar. I had a cousin who came on by me, and my mom bought me this plastic 4 string thing. He came one day, tuned it up, and started to play something, and it was like a different instrument. So that was a big inspiration for me, and I just took it from there. There was some natural talent, I think, but none of my family members played music, so a lot of it was just me digging in the trenches. I had no family member that I could look to or jump off from, so a lot of it was just me listening a lot, copying stuff. I remember I listened to the radio and just play along with what I was hearing. And in that period, radio played everything. You could put on the radio and hear everything that from on a 2 hour period, you know. So I think those things really brought a sense of music being. Interesting is I listened to a lot of interviews and a lot of musicians my age. That's how they learned to play it. You know, they didn't go to any school. They went to school after, but the initial interaction with music was just listening to something and trying to pick it up by ear, which develops your ear training indirectly. That's how I started.
And you've made the point that a number of your contemporaries also started almost naturally. So is that still happening, you think, in Trinidad?
Much as before. And it's interesting that I have a lot of ideas why not and why. I think one is that thing about the radio, the, because radio is so specific. You hear this if you have a radio in your house, you more than likely would be attuned to one or two stations, and these stations have X or Y format, and that's what you hear, that's what you listen to. So unless you have a family member that's diverse to play different things, you only hear one or two things. And to me, that limits your ability on hearing music on a larger spectrum. I've had students who, interestingly, before never heard a live steel band, and that used to freak me out. They'd never heard a live steel band because family members never were interested for some reason to be in that space. To me, that's the purpose of a school. You're not experiencing this language or this ideology. School is supposed to expose you to things that you're not familiar with. But the system we have sometimes, it is so focused on one thing that some things get missed. Some things that, oh, I never heard about that, because the channel you in was only focusing on A, B, and C. So JK and JKL got thrown out even though. And then you grow up and you be like, I never hear a live steel band, or I never went to so and so. Like, you never, how come? Because you were never exposed to it. And I think those are some of the failures or things we could improve on, because you could always do better.
Surprised to hear you say that there are people you've met who said they've never heard a live steel
Yeah.
band.
Uh-huh.
If you
No.
if you could transform that, what would you do?
Children need to be exposed to as many different things as possible. You may not like it, but you don't know what your child will gravitate to, and you don't know where that will take them. I had no idea that I was going to be in this position today. When I was growing up, playing music really wasn't something that you would think as, oh yeah, that's a profession. But it could be lucrative, it could be worthwhile if there is the correct investment, but there's no climatization when you're young, then it just goes out the window. I'm big on creative arts. I've seen so many students have ridiculous talent, but because it's not nurtured, then it just goes out the way, and we don't know where that could have taken them. In our space, we have produced Peter Minchell, Shea Lovelace, David Rudder. I could just go on, Michael Bootman, Roy Callis. We have produced people who have gone from this space outwards into the wider universe, Brian Lara, Etienne Charles. But it didn't happen just like that. It had to have some nurturing to point and to direct. So I'm just saying, if I had to change it, I would say education in schools, being a little more diverse.
I'm hearing you talk about removing the focus from so much on passing the exam.
Some primary schools do have what they call pan in school programs. Quite a few secondary schools have it because sexy music is on the curricula. But the reality is, not everyone, as I said, yeah, I've heard students They may hear it, they may see somebody playing a pan, but to know that is what it is, they're totally lost. If that happens, fine. But what do you do next then? Then you need to experience this by a gentle introduction. There are people in China who say, well, I don't like the sound of that. Then you ask yourself, why is this that? What it is about the sound that you don't like? And then we get into some other dynamics. The fact that you never heard it, experienced it, that's something a little different. Sometimes we just need people to be exposed to something else. We have to find a space to introduce those differences to them, else they go about their lives. I think the internet and the availability of so much information sometimes has a negative effect, because I hear music teachers all the time, local and abroad, complaining that everything is there for them, but they're not using it. Well, yeah, because everything is available. But how do you decide out of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all I need to focus on is D? If there's no one to show them that, it's just, I don't know what to choose. Sometimes, you have to take the good with the bad.
What are your views about the potential for music?
Think about the people we have, I would say, with world recognition. For example, I interacted with a young pan player that I know on social media. I was thinking, man, this is phenomenal. She's a phenomenal player. Came out of Trinidad. People in Trinidad may or may not know her. And I'm thinking, this person came out of the space. How can we make the space more attractive to produce more like this person? I could call Etienne Charles. I know Etienne Charles. There was an interview on Newsday on a guy called Kyle Peters. Kyle was a student of mine in UE. Phenomenal person. And obviously he has ways to go, but the space is here. Everything is here. How do we nurture it? I don't have all the answers, but we have to continue the work in nurturing as best as we can, so we can get more Kyle Peters, more Etienne Charles, young entrepreneurs willing to take chances. Playing music is taking a chance in a way. It's not. It's still not like what you call an 8 to 4 job, if that even exists anymore. Because post COVID, I think everybody got turned around, flipped upside down as to what's possible. How can this work for me? And vice versa. On the flip side is that a lot of people got totally messed up, or got totally thrown off the rails and haven't been able to come back on any kind of platform to move forward. The music industry is volatile, competitive, and sometimes, even though I'm saying, I'll give you an example. So most people see Spotify as like 1 million streams, 2 billion streams, but the people who have those streams are already very successful. But there are millions of other people, musicians, creatives, who just wouldn't get that type of streaming. But so how do they survive? How do they make it work? I was thinking the other day, I have music on Spotify and the streams. I'm not collecting any money. Why should I pay to join a stream to stream mine? It's already free. So why should I pay to listen to my thing? So you have to ask yourself, how do I make money from live performances? And set required investment in equipment. When you're thinking about the music industry, what would the planet be? Turn on the radio, turn on your iPad or your AirPods to hear something, to make you feel good when you're not feeling good, to make you feel better, to make you think about, hey, I never think about this idea, because you were motivated by something that you hear or see. Because I see music and art being the same. One is dealing with sound, and the other is deals with visual, but they're all from energy source. They work to inspire us to make the space better, which in turn comes back to us. It's like a cycle going around all the time. I personally see the music is not separate from the living experience. They interact with each other and affect each other. Things that you hear or don't hear influence how you behave and how you interact. So it's symbiotic. All influences in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, but Trinidad and Tobago have always been phenomenal in a way. Calypso music still has this huge impact on the world, even though they may not call it that, for all kind of reasons. We created that. I don't think we fully understand the power of it. The potential is there. Our space created steel band. I don't think we totally understand that power. That I think we do understand what that means. To me, it's already created from this space. Do you really understand how powerful that is? I don't think so. Let's think about it. It's like the only acoustic thing that was made the last couple hundred years, new thing, came from here. How did that happen? Why did that happen? What does that say about your DNA, your ancestry? Do we understand that? I don't think I even understand some of it. I think I do, but I don't understand the fullness of or the vastness of that experience. I feel very strongly about the potential of the things we do. I was listening to Coca T the other day and thinking how from Kess and how much it goes back into, even though they're calling it, they put it on the reggae thing, which I think is just business. It's listen to the sound, how much of it is calypso, how much of it goes back to music from Afro beats, which to me is back to the 70s, Fela Kuti music. It's all intertwined, it's all that simmering. So yeah, our music is always powerful. If you listen to reggaeton, that's definitely straight up soca thing, but they call it something else. Why? They have their reasons why, the business, the aspect of it. But it doesn't take away the fact that that's what it is. So you may want to call it different things, but it is really that. And that's just part of the space we live in.
What would we do to transform it so that we continue to make a difference globally?
Denise, that's a hard question. We have to consciously make an attempt to do things better. I'm not saying we don't have things done properly in Trinidad. I'm saying musically. A lot of things could be done better. It has to come from the me inside that I want to make this space better. I want to do better. I want to compare. This needs more investment in terms of my time. Sometimes I feel finance is a problem, but a lot of it is not finance, it's just to make it better. And I think those things come school, from teachings, from family. I had a discussion just last week with two senior people, and they were asking me, how come I did things this way and that way? I said, my mother, a single parent, her attitude was, do it correctly first time. Unfortunately, not everybody sees it that way. Sometimes people hustle through things in all aspects of our society. We don't take responsibility. Okay, I take the licks. That was not me. I will go and change it. We always want to, there's somebody else. So there's some, no, I wasn't do that. It wasn't really me. And then we pass it on, but the problem still remains. And I'm just saying that sense of responsibility to do things better comes from the inside. I can't say how to change that. To me, I think it's family. Your family structure doesn't have that inclination or direction, then you don't get it. And then have to get it from somewhere else, hopefully. So my main thing is making things better.
Theron, what has been your most impactful music contribution?
I had the opportunity to play with Andrew Tanker until he passed. I was in the last segment of his musical experiences. I was in, because he had a couple of others before. I was in his last band, his last musical foray. And at the time, I always felt that I always felt that Andrew's music had a bigger role to play. He was very popular at the time in Trinidad. We would do performances in the Caribbean. But I always felt that this music had ways to go. A couple of years ago, I had some interaction with Janine, the big opera singer. People may or may not is phenomenal. To Trinidad and Tobago, she went to a convent school, I think it's in South. She went to a convent school. I'm not sure which one, but she went to at a St. Joseph's Convent in South. Janine is a worldwide phenom in terms of opera. Very dark skinned. You sing an opera and you from the Caribbean. Something is a little different in that. Has won many things abroad. But I'm saying, so we had this opportunity. I did a recital with her in Connecticut. And through one of the things was to include some local things, and we worked up an arrangement of Marina Osha. We performed it at Carifesta, but all through my, again, it's not a big paying thing financially, but the experience was, wow, here's Andrew Tanker's music that I was living with. He's now deceased. Look at where it is. Having a part to play in that was a great experience. It was fulfilling for me because I was able to to know the source, but also project music from that source in a whole other space. In so much as I remember I was with her mom in Barbados, Janine's mom, and she was receiving an award in Germany. They were all speaking in German, and they had a translator. She received the award, and they asked her to sing something a cappella. I don't think it wasn't televised in Trinidad. People didn't know about this. And she stood up there and she sang Marina Osha a cappella. I just went back, sat back in my chair, and I was just thinking, Andre, look at where you reach, brother. Look at where you are. Look at where music. I can't separate the music from the person. Is Bali's music is Bob Marley forever. Andrew's music is Andrew's music forever. He may be in a different space, but look at where his music is on a stage in Germany from an opera singer from Trinidad. Ask me, Leon, what's the potential of our music? That is the potential. Look at where we, I don't think Andre, maybe he knew where things would go and that he didn't say. But look at where this thing reached. Look at the again, Trinidad music. Talking about Trinidad, dealing with Trinidad or black experiences from the diaspora in Trinidad, transported to Europe with somebody who is recognized as a opera singer, but is able to tap into her own ancestry in Trinidad music. Look at the potential. In fact, I did an arrangement of two songs for her. She was working with the orchestra early on this year, and they use the base of my arrangements for a live performance. But I'm just saying, those things for me, from the creative aspect, are big. They may not be stuff that you see with a million streams on YouTube, but I'm looking at potential of the music being exposed in different spaces. It may not be something that everybody knows about, but for me, it's totally fulfilling because it shows potential. What is our potential to have impact on somebody um, in some other part of the world? That's the power of music. You hear it and it's, whoa, it hits you.
If you were talking to the person on the maxi who had not heard of Andre Tanker before, how would you describe his music?
Totally Trinidad, totally
Yeah.
Trinidadian. I have this theory that you just need somebody to tell you to turn on the light, or to just tap that little or put on the switch. Hey, this is your tune. And it's like, oh yeah, that's true, that's me. If that switch is not turned on, then it doesn't get ignited. Maybe it's country music at Trinidad and Tobago. It's East Indian, it's First People music, it's African music, it's carnival music, it's steel pan music, all the things that make up our space. And he had that ability to bring everything into one. I went to his lecture last Tuesday and he was talking about pecan. And it just hit me as you were talking about Andre took the idea of pecan and addressed a global issue, which was the Bin Laden thing. He made it like a joke, but it was a very serious thing. Bin Laden was the most wanted man, supposedly, by the United States of America for a long while. And Andre took that idea, that concept of Bin Laden, and make it like a Trinidad thing by Bin Laden. And people understood it, but they also liked the idea of how it felt that we were singing something that was about us, but it really was about a wider global issue. And that's the power of the calypso too, that we create, where we as a people can take a global issue and talk about it where we could understand it. we could break down the music has that calypso music has the ability to take serious issues and make it comical so that we could understand it a little bit more, digest it, and maybe deal with it in a particular way. That's the power of calypso. And Andre had that ability to bring all those things together. I don't think there's anybody else that has done that kind of mixture all in one. I can't say it's calypso. I can't say is this first people music. Is just that thing that he had. That was his gift. Music is something that you have to experience. You have to be exposed to it and experience it. I think to me that's one of the pitfalls of the internet. You like this, I'm going to feed you with everything that you like. You're not going to be given the chance unless you choose to investigate and find other things. But once you listen to this that you like, I'm going to feed you with everything that sounds exactly like that. So you get attuned to this sound. And then it makes everything else sound a bit odd. If it is more for you to experience different things, then I think there's a ability to hear other things, to experience other things, to even experience the things that you like even more. But it's not geared to me. That's the biggest thing about the music. Now you've mentioned that there are a lot of people who like reggae in Trinidad, and that's just what they have been exposed to. If the exposure was in a different way, then I guess there'd be a lot more people liking calypso and soca music. Not that they don't, but there'd be a lot more. Yeah. But that's that. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Do you think there's a Trinidad rhythm that could be commercialized?
Rhythm is a touchy thing. To me, a music that is really Trinidadian is like that amalgamation between parang and not soca, but parang and indigenous. Because parang is, we've created some things. There are things that from Venezuela that paranda that is geared along that way. But there was some early music created by San Jose Serenade, a group from St. Joseph that took some of our things, not necessarily soca things. That is Trinidad rhythm. Calypso would be calypso. That's our thing. But again, because it's really African music, there are things that there's music from West Africa that sounds pretty much similar to what we do. So then, could you really say it's our thing? It came from somewhere. That amalgamation. If we could commercialize that, I can't say.
As we come close to the end of this program, what would be Theron Shaw's legacy in this country?
Legacy. I did my best. Make the best of the situation. I made the best of the situation. I made lemon juice with lemons. I I try to inspire as many people as I can. I try to be honest in my doings. I try to be honest in my critique or comments that sometimes may not settle with you at the time, but I try to be honest. I try to give back what was given to me. I am a firm believer of giving back because the only reason I'm here is because people stood up and said, give him a break. I don't know you, but let's see what could happen. To me, that's your life experience. It's a give and take. You give of yourself and things will come. That's old spiritual ideology. If you give, you receive 10 times. You don't give to receive 10 times, but it happens. And my thing is, I was given opportunities, and I hope that I would have created opportunities or shared information.
As we wrap up, what would you like our listeners to take away?
Try and do it better. No, it's not about a music thing anymore. It's a Trinidad thing. I want to leave one simple ideology that was shared with me by Ella Andel years ago. And it's a holistic thought. I hope that she's doing okay today. We were discussing freely about your space. She calls me T-shirt. She's a T-shirt. If you come out on the street and you see the street dirty, one thing you could do is Get up in the morning, you clean in front of your space. You might inspire the person next to you to say, hey, I'm gonna clean up his space. Let me try and clean mine too. In that way, you might see everybody copying what you're doing. And next thing you know, your whole street clean. And I'm saying, one thing I want to leave it, we can do better. If we try to do better, if I try to do better, and somebody see me trying to do better, they mightn't do anything. They might say, what wrong with he? Who we think he is. But somebody else may see it and say, hey boy, I could. And then it becomes like a somebody tack on and somebody tack on. And I'm talking about all aspects of Trinidad and Tobago. All aspects.
Lovely. And on that note, we can do better. I'm taking that away. Thank you, Theron.
You're most welcome. Thanks for having me.